This is a quick video to show you what harmony is and how to make harmonies. So last week when we were in our sequencer, we were building melodies by doing one note at a time, and that's the definition of melody, where you have one different note, one at a time, ba da 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 da, and one note happens at a time. I forgot to get my piano. But harmony is where you have more than one note at a time. So instead of going, that was one note at a time and they made this nice line going up and down. Harmony is taking one note and adding another note to it at the same time, or maybe two other notes. Oops, I missed. So harmony is making what we would call a chord, more than one note at once. Now, I'm going to show you an easy way to do this. There's a lot more involved in it, but at least this will help you kind of understand what we're doing when we're adding notes together, because sometimes you add notes, and that's a bunch of notes together, but they don't sound very good. So let's figure out a way to make it sound very good. So we have a musical scale, which means we use every note, ba da 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 da, straight up. So we're going to start on this scale with a C note. Then we're going to go up to the next note, which is D, then E, then F, G, A, B, and finally C up top there. Okay, so this would be a scale. If I played this one at a time, that would be a melody. But we can take every note, now that we have the notes that we're using for whatever song, we can add another note to this note of the scale. So we're going to start with a C note, and the way we do this, we call it stacked thirds. So we're going to play the C note, but then we're also going to go up three notes. And in music, we count the C as the first one. So C would be 1, D would be 2, E would be 3. So if you play the C and the E together, that sounds pretty good. That's a third up. And then most chords in music are three notes. So we already have the first note C, then the next note E. We're going to go up 3 from E, again counting E as the first one, E, F, G. G is our third note up from E. And then we get C, E, and G together. So if I want to build a chord on C, I take that and 3 notes higher than that, E note, and then I take 3 notes higher than that, G note, and then this gives us a C chord. We call it a C chord because the bottom note is C. All right? So basically we're going up 3 in order to make a chord. We could do that on the D also. We could play a D, and then we go up 3, D, E, F, and then F, G, A, and D, skip E, F, skip G, A, D, F, A is also a chord that sounds pretty good. Now, you may notice between the C and the D chords, the C sounds a little bit brighter, and the D sounds a little bit darker. All right, and if you don't quite hear that, trust me on that. We'll work through what that sounds like. But on the D chord, there's 2 notes that kind of fight each other just a little bit. It sounds good, but there's a little bit of a dissonance is what we call it in music. And then on the C chord, it's a little brighter. It doesn't have as much fighting going on. So if you build a chord on each one of these notes of a scale, you will have some chords that sound bright and some chords that sound dark. So if we number our scale with numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, if we build a chord on C, we'd call that a 1 chord, it's bright. So C chord, bright chord. 2 chord, dark. 3 chord, dark. 4 chord, bright again. Do you hear the brightness? So the 4 chord is bright. The 5 chord, also bright. And again, all I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, well, I'm starting a note or a chord on G. I'll play G, then I'll go up 3 notes, G, A, B, and I'll play B along with it, and then I'll go up 3 more, B, C, and play the D that's up here that I didn't write. But that's a G chord, those 3 notes. Okay, if we build a note on, or a chord on 6, it's dark again, and then 7 is really dark. We build a note on B, and then C is this same chord again, but it's an octave higher. It's the higher C chord. So that's the lower C chord, that's the higher C chord. So in the music that you listen to, most of the time songs use 3 chords, maybe 4, and the 3 chords that they use are the chord that started on the 1st note of the scale, chord that started on the 4th note of the scale, chord that started on the 5th note of the scale. That's a little further into music theory than you need to go. All I want you to get out of this is if I want to build a chord starting on C, I start on C, go up 3, play an E along with the C, go up 3 more, play a G along with the E and the C, and that's going to give us a chord that works and it sounds good and doesn't sound odd or dissonant or really terrible. So if I try to play a C, a D, and an F and a G, do you hear that that just kind of clashes against each other? It may not be bad for what the music you're writing is or what you want to communicate with the music, but it isn't a good sounding chord, right? It has a little bit of to it. So we're going to learn good sounding chords so that you can do this in your sequencers. Now in your sequencer, we don't have the letters. So the way that's going to work is in the sequencer. Let's just pretend this is the sequencer. We've got a whole bunch of blocks that you can fill in, and you say, hey, I want a note here. We're going to play this note, so you fill in that block. Up until now, you haven't been able to fill in 2 blocks that happen at the same time. It was a melody thing, and if you tried to fill in this block, it would get rid of this block and just change the note. The one we're going to do starting next week is going to let you do more than 1 note at a time. So when you first get it, I'm going to have you build some chords, and you're going to use the same process, except this doesn't tell you what letter the note is. So if you use this note, then you're just going to go up 3, counting this note, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to fill in that note. And then from this one, you're going to go up 3 more, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to fill in that note, and you will get the same idea of those 3 notes that sound good together with the letters that we just did. And then if you want another chord, say, here's your next chord. Here's the first note, then we go 1, 2, 3. We go up to that note, and then 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I didn't draw that one. And we would go up to that note, and then we would have this chord, and then we would move to these 3 notes, and we would have that chord. And I'll have you play with the chords for a little bit next week, writing chords and seeing which ones sound good together, which ones don't, and why we do this stacking thirds thing. And then we'll learn how to put our chords together with a melody that you write. So that is harmony, more than 1 note at a time, and we want our harmony to sound good together. We don't want it to be too super clashy, so a way to do that is using stacked thirds.